Anti-vaxxers and conspiracy theorists have been slammed for refusing to have the coronavirus vaccine when it becomes available in Australia. While the Prime Minister's accepted it will be hard to make it mandatory, there are increasing calls for there to be consequences for those who refuse the jab. The government has warned it won't rule out strict measures for those who do not comply. It's a hot topic this morning. To discuss it, I'm joined by 7 News political editor Mark Riley and journalist Louise Roberts. Morning to both of you. Mark,
good morning.
Do you think the federal government will follow through on these threats?
Good morning, Nat. Good morning, Louise. I think it probably will. I mean, Scott Morrison yesterday in a couple of interviews said, don't forget I'm the Minister of no jab, no play. And that requirement was brought in by a lot of the states in childcare centres and in schools. So there are things the government can do legally. There's a collision here between the rights of the individual and the rights of the community, but the law has deferred in favour of the community in some celebrated cases. So the government can do something. Maybe, no jab, no job keeper, no jab, no job seeker. Would that work? Who knows? But look, the bigger problem here though, Nat, is a question of moral and intellectual equivalence. This is what the anti-vaxxers want. They want a debate where their Fruit Loop ideas are given the same elevation as science, and we shouldn't give them that.
Yeah. Are they being un-Australian, Louise? Did it help yesterday with the messaging that, Scott Morrison, did this massive media campaign, and then the company that he was talking about came out and sort of had to clarify a few things and say it was actually a letter of intent, it wasn't actually a deal?
Look, I think the vaccine will go ahead. It's what we've, give or take some of the fine print that obviously has to be ironed out at this point. But it's what we've all been waiting for. I mean, this whole pandemic has been marked by a real feeling of helplessness that we need a vaccine in order to get on with our lives, but also a sense of we're all in this together. That's why we all need to have this vaccine, because in order to get herd immunity, 95% of us need to have it, unless you have a legitimate medical reason not to have the vaccine. And to my mind, that's the only reason why you should refuse it.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other idea that's really important here is the responsibility on big media companies. By that, I mean those big media companies who say they aren't big media companies. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all these social media platforms. When all these nutcase theories are being propagated on their platforms, they should pull them down. If they can pull down tweets from the President of the United States, they can pull down this gumph, and they should.
Well, the amount of things that go around Facebook every day, and you can hear it come out at every barbecue, at every dinner party. It's sprouted.
Yes.
I know. It's repeated back to you.
People can be worried about these things, and people who maybe haven't read deeply into it can be persuaded by it. So, I mean, there's a real responsibility for this sort of stuff. I read stuff last night about vaccines being a front for injecting silicon chips into people's bodies so governments can trace them. I mean, really, this sort of stuff should not be allowed to be put onto social media because it does persuade people, unfortunately.
Yeah.